When you're working in scientific notation, there are some general kind of rules of thumb that you can use to see if your answer is sensible. So I'm just going to work through some of those, and then I'm going to talk about how to go about tackling an operation with scientific notation without using your calculator. So first of all, let's talk about numbers greater than 1. So that means they have a positive exponent when they're written in scientific notation. So for example, if we've got 10 to the 5 and 10 to the 6, then that's the same as saying 100,000 and a million. And so the one with the smaller coefficient, the smaller exponent is the smaller number. So 10 to the 5 is smaller than 10 to the 6 by a factor of 10. And then let's look at when we're multiplying and dividing those numbers. I mean, you should know all this already, but I'm just stating the obvious here. So we've got 10 to the power 2 times 10 to the power 3, for instance. So that's the same as saying 10 to the power 2 plus 3, which is 10 to the 5, which is a bigger number than these ones we started out with. Let's just say bigger. Yeah, so 10 to the 5 is bigger than 10 to the 2 and 10 to the 3. And then how about if we got 10 to the 2 divided by 10 to the 3? That's the same as 10 to the power 2 minus 3, or 10 to the minus 1, which is smaller than those two numbers we started out with. Okay, and seeing as 10 to the 5 is smaller than 10 to the 6, if we have 1 times 10 to the power 5, that's the same as 0.1 times 10 to the 6, because there are 10 to the 5s in every 10 to the 6. So 1 times 10 to the 5 is equal to 1/10 of 10 to the 6. Cool. So there we go. So this is our numbers greater than 1. Now let's move on to numbers which are smaller than 1. So these ones with a negative exponent. So to use a similar example, so we've got 10 to the minus 5 and 10 to the minus 6. So that's the same as saying 0.0004 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, and 0.000001. Is that right? Yes, it is. So that tells us that so this number is bigger than that number. 10 to the minus 5 is greater than 10 to the minus 6. So really what the exponent here is telling us is how far the number is from 1. So if it's further from 1, going in a negative direction, that means the number is getting smaller and smaller. Okay, now how about if we multiply together two numbers with negative exponents? So say 10 to the minus 2 times 10 to the minus 3. That's equal to 10 to the power minus 2 plus minus 3, which is 10 to the minus 5, which is smaller than those numbers we started out with, so it's getting further away from 1. And so 10 to the minus 2 divided by 10 to the minus 3 is equal to 10 to the minus 2 minus minus 3, which is 10 to the power plus 1, which is bigger. Alright, and seeing as 10 to the minus 5 is greater than 10 to the minus 6, that tells us that 1 times 10 to the minus 5 is equal to 10 times 10 to the minus 6. Because 1 times 10 to the minus 5 is 10 times greater than 1 times 10 to the minus 6. So here are the stages I recommend you go through when you're tackling a problem like this. So multiplying or dividing numbers together in scientific notation. So first of all, is the answer going to be bigger or smaller than your original number that you start with? So for that, so as I've shown you over here, so if you're timesing by something with a positive exponent, it's going to be bigger. If you're, if you're dividing by something with a positive exponent, it's going to be smaller. So these are just numbers greater than 1. If you're timesing by a number that's smaller than 1, that has a negative exponent, then that's going to make your answer smaller. And if you're dividing by something that has a negative exponent, that's going to make your answer bigger. Okay, so first of all, I think you should ask yourself that question. Is my answer going to be bigger or smaller after I've done it? Then the second thing you need to do is group together the coefficients and the exponential numbers. So for example, if we've got let's say 3 times 10 to the 3 times 2 times 10 to the 4, then what I would do would be to say 3 times 2 and then put these powers of 10 together, so that's 10 to the power 3 plus 4. So that's 6 times 10 to the power 7. And then thirdly, you can then change powers of 10 as necessary. So for example, let's imagine this wasn't 3, let's say this was 9 times 10 to the power 3 times 2 times 10 to the power 4. Then that's 9 times 2 times 10 to the power 3 plus 4, which is 18 times 10 to the 7. So then we can, if we want to put this into standard form, we'd want to change that to 1.8 times 10 to the something, and there it gets a bit tricky if we're bigger than 1 or smaller than 1. So here we know that 10 to the 5 is equal to 0.1 times 10 to the 6. So here we want to make the coefficient smaller, so we need to make our exponent bigger. So that's the same as 1.8 times 10 to the 8. Alright, so the really most important thing is to ask yourself, is my answer at the end going to be bigger or smaller than the number I started out with?